Welcome to Fly on the Wall. We are your host,
I'm Marquita Moten.
and I'm Jonathan Matthias Lassiter. So, who the hell are we?
Well, I'm a Southern girl, bruja of sorts, with a master's degree in clinical mental health and a penchant for merging counseling and spirituality.
The one to get your life together. My personal go-to when my energy is not right. I called you yesterday. So,
Okay.
and I am Jonathan Matthias Lassiter, PhD, licensed clinical psychologist, professor, and award-winning author. That's right, she writes books. Mhm.
Yes, I know
Um,
y'all.
what'd you say?
I said, I know y'all.
She know me and I know her. We know each other. From way back in the way back. So anyway, so today, what are we talking about, Keita?
What are we talking about?
Well, let's talk about how you giving me Erica Badu tease. That's number one.
Oh, well, girl, just so you know, I have been collecting my dirty panties for a week
I can't believe that sold out. Hey, listen, get me going, Erica Badu.
People are very strange. And I'm still, it's like because it's Erica Badu, I kind of believe it.
Oh no, it's real. She
I
actually,
wish it's real. I wish it wasn't.
yeah, she did make a candle out of her vagina smell, apparently.
No, I heard she made incense. She made a candle too.
Oh, incense, one of them. And I think Gwyneth Paltrow also made a candle out of hers.
No, she just called it my vagina or something like that. But hers was really manufactured in factory.
Oh, so
She,
everybody did
she did it as a joke, but I think Erica really out here cutting out the crotch of her panties and like using the ashes to make incense or something.
Listen, I don't really hate on any black person for getting that coin unless it's harming other black people. But
Right.
anyway, so I'm giving you Maxine, Waters tea. So
Yes. And I
reclaiming
love it.
all of my time.
I should have worn mine too.
Oh, you have one too? Did I see it?
Yeah, you got it. You got me one.
Oh,
I can't with you.
I was like, ow.
But I guess you gave from the abundance of your heart because you forgot that you got.
That's really how I always give.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good to know.
Like I just give thinking I'm never gonna see it again, or want it again. Like even when I like loan people money, I'm just like, okay, half the money.
Yeah, you can have it. I'm the
Yeah,
same way.
yeah. If I can't live without the money, then I'm not gonna let you have it. I'm not gonna do this borrow thing. Like
Right.
if it's only if I can let you have it.
Yeah, I agree.
That's from a place of abundance, right? So we manifest.
Exactly. Because
So
it's always available.
yes, exactly, right? No spirit of scarcity over here.
Mm-hmm.
So I took some notes because people really responded to our first episode. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And so some folks wanted us to talk about dealing with family during the COVID lockdown. It looks like some of these states is about to end the lockdown, acting a fool, even though the infection rates are still going up.
Including Georgia.
Listen, I'm trying to keep my stress low, so I can't. But it's like, why, Lord? Why you hate us, Papa?
Right.
I can't. But so yeah, but people are trying to figure out how to deal with loved ones. And I think you had a story about a friend of yours. So what was that about?
I did actually. It's interesting because first one friend called me
Mm-hmm.
with a concern, and another one emailed me after watching our show with a similar concern. The second friend was asking mostly about how to deal with friends when they don't understand depression. And the first friend that called me was asking how to deal with family when they don't understand depression because they are, quarantined together at this time. So that was pretty much the gist of what it was
Mhm.
that was being asked.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it was both about depression, so about this
Yeah.
emotion, right? Like family not understanding emotion. And so, yeah, I mean, and I think that's exacerbated. I think in general, sometimes families, especially Black families, or especially families that aren't used to talking about emotions or showing emotions, can have a
Mhm.
problem with, right? But especially like during this time of close confinement, like it can really become like emotionally tense in households where we're all dealing with our stuff, right? If we're in the middle of a pandemic, how can you not be like going through something emotionally?
Right.
Even if it's fleeting, it's coming and going, but then if you have that person that like, why you sad? Why are you depressed? Like, why are you moping? It makes
Mhm.
things worse.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned specifically how Black people deal with certain emotions. We have an entire episode about what people of color allow and don't allow themselves and each other to feel. So we might have to talk about that later. But I do think that it's important, one, to understand what you're going through yourself, because if you don't even understand it, you definitely can't explain it to the next person.
Mhm.
And then also, I personally don't feel obligated to explain anything to anyone I don't feel like explaining to.
Mhm.
There are some things that I experienced, and I very much need time alone to process that. And I know it's hard in the midst of the quarantine to be alone, but even if being alone means you take a walk, taking a walk by yourself, listening to some music, or listening to something motivational or encouraging or whatever on YouTube, or just listening to the birds sing and reminding yourself that in spite of what you see, in spite of what you're going through in your current state of emotion,
Mhm.
there is a bigger picture. Birds never, to our knowledge, they're never suffering outside of the stuff that we do to the environment,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so then there is a larger picture where suffering is not present. And so just processing that and absorbing the energy of that awareness, I think is very important. And being in nature helps a lot to do that.
So,
Um,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Keita.
oh, I was also going to say just reading or re-engaging in things that you haven't done in a while, but you may have wanted to. I have another friend, she and her children have been painting every Friday night. And I
Mm.
just think that's so beautiful. They all just sit and paint whatever they want, and then they share their paintings. So then you're collaborative, but you're also in your own space,
Mhm.
because I don't think they're sitting there like influencing each other while they're painting,
Mhm.
but just fully in the process.
Well, I heard three things that stood out to me. I like to make my little bullet
Your
point.
list. Uh-huh.
Um, but I heard three things. One I heard was taking emotional space. So like when you're in the
Mhm.
house with people and they are, you know, critiquing, your emotional process, then it can be helpful to one, become aware of your emotional process for yourself. And two, taking space or putting a boundary around
Absolutely.
around your space, like you mentioned a lot of different strategies that can allow you to have that space so you can be in your emotions. One that I use is like just having like alone time in the bathroom, like taking longer showers or something like that,
Hmm.
can really help. So I hear that. So one, self-awareness of emotion, two, taking emotional space, and three, when you are able to express emotionally or you want to connecting in a way where there's shared interest, right? Because you talk about painting and any type of art really can be a form of emotional expression. So
Yeah.
whether you're doing that yourself or whether you're doing that with loved ones, I think that can be some strategies. I was thinking like Brian and I were watching Little Rascals the other day, like from the I think this 1930s. And so my mother, I was telling him about how when I was little, my mother had got us the VHS for the
Mm-hmm.
Little Rascals and how Brian pulled it up on YouTube and I knew all of those lines.
Oh.
Like there was like Miss Crabtree was asking them questions, and one of the boys in the class that gave them all the wrong answers because no one studied, but they thought they had the right answers. And so, Miss Crabtree, what they would sound like an oral exam, and she was like, "Oh, what did Paul Revere say when he pulled up?" And one of the kids was like, "He said, whoa." I remember that line.
That's so cute.
Another question was, what did Washington say as he crossed the Delaware? And this girl got up and she said, "Be doop, be doop, be doop, be doop." But I
That's what
remember
he said. Okay.
that, and I was thinking, oh my God, isn't that amazing? How my mother, who was born in 1950, so she was watching something that probably her parents had watched. And then
Mm-hmm.
she shared it with me and my brother in the 80s and 90s. So what the whole point I'm getting to is another way of connecting emotionally is
Mm-hmm.
sharing things that create positive emotions with family
Right.
members, right? And so I was just thinking about how amazing that was. That like those like literally the lines from that 1930s, yeah, like are in my head because my mother's mother had shared it with her,
Yeah.
and she shared it with me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's we could maybe want to add that on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I like that. I think it's also important from the other end, like for people who are the ones pointing the finger and saying, "Why aren't you out of the bed?" or "What are you sad about? We all in this pandemic, blah, 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 blah." I think that just having compassion goes such a long way. It really does. And I'm curious from a therapeutic perspective whether or not those people are able to sit with themselves like we discussed last week. Because I feel like people who have a habit of being intrinsic have less of a habit of blaming others.
Yeah, and I was just about to say that when you said it's about compassion, but I was thinking, yeah, but usually people that have a hard time showing compassion also don't have compassion for themselves.
Mm.
So they
Mhm.
blame themselves for stuff, and so they're probably not only saying to that person, "Why are you moping? Why are you still in bed?" But they're saying that to themselves as well, like
Yeah.
get up, don't suck it up, get out there. They're probably
Mhm.
saying those things to themselves, even though it may be this impulse to sit with their own, you know, um, uncomfortable emotions in that moment.
Right.
Yeah. So I think one thing for those folks may be just to ask a question. Again, maybe before even asking the question, I think awareness. I find that like we both are therapists. I think we've had this conversation before about like these micro steps we take with patients, where like oftentimes the first step is awareness,
Hmm.
like catch yourself in the moment of doing stuff. So
Yeah.
like maybe the thing is like catch yourself when you're like you know, being negative towards someone else's emotion. Like, oh, okay, I did that. And
Mhm.
maybe you don't stop. Oftentimes,
Right.
especially when you first start out, you're not gonna stop because it's just like on autopilot. But at least like noticing like, oh, okay, I just went off on someone for, you know, looking
Nothing.
bad.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the same can be said for the person who is feeling depressed right
Mhm.
now. They should show themselves compassion as well. I
Mhm.
think a lot of times with depression, there is that snowball thinking that happens. And so to already have an external voice that's saying you need to get up, you need to stop being sad, you need. Then there's also the internal component of feeling guilty about not being able to, or feeling guilty that you haven't overcome whatever it is. And then that keeps you locked in that cycle. So rather than doing that, just have more patience and compassion towards yourself as well, and figure out what it would look like to love yourself right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Even if loving yourself means to stop thinking that thought.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. Drop those bags is really the end goal, but it's these
Yeah.
little micro steps.
Mhm.
And so I think, you know, I think we could probably end right there, because I think that it's like, as you talk about that, like I said, I think about it as like dropping bags, and I think bag lady, but I think about it.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think maybe that's a good full
You
circle
really stuck
moment.
on Erica today.
Yeah. Erica Badu, you know, frame this discussion. So I think, yeah, you know, helping ourselves to drop those bags and those micro steps.
Mhm.
I think it's a way that we can think about um, dealing with our own emotion and other people's emotions in our
Yeah.
house as we are quarantined together, and even beyond, because these aren't skills we just need during a quarantine. These skills we
Right. It's life. Everybody got something.
right, and that's on a period.
Oh Lord. I can't, Vicky.
Well, this has been Fly on the Wall. And yeah, the email address for your questions are going to be in the box below. So make sure to check that out, and let us know any questions or any topics you want us to talk about. And we thank you all for all the engagement.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so like, subscribe, all that great stuff. Tell some friends, post it on social media, because
Yeah.
you know we out here, we out here, you
We
know,
out here.
we out
And
here,
we doing it.
we out here, you know, and we out here doing it, and you know, like trying to, you know, do it for the culture. So you know, if you think it could help some folks, send them, you know, send them this video. All right, so love you, Keita.
Love you.
You know.
Bye.